incredibly well-behaved, on-time, synchronized audience. Round of applause for yourself, because that was awesome.
Yeah.
That was really good. All right, everybody, welcome here. Speak Up Monday. As you know, we're in the garden here at Tropical Nomad, underneath the stars. And this is episode number 496 with another wonderful, wonderful guest who I really, really respect and love and appreciate, Melati Wijsen. I'm sure her surname is pronounced differently to what I just said, but we'll get to that. So look, for those of you tuning in, you know, I'll get to a little bit of an intro in a second, but as we know, you know, sustainability, conservation, these things matter a lot. I just came back from Abu Dhabi 3 days in the IUCN conference, one of the largest conferences about nature conservation in the world. And I was hosting and moderating a session around the oceans, 90 minutes, met some, you know, secretary generals of the UN, very high level government and private sector. And I got a really deeper understanding about what we're facing, right? So even though I'm a guy who likes to smile and laugh because I feel that that's who I am anyway, the topic tonight is serious. So we will get to this. Now, let me give a little intro. Yes, on this over here with paper. There you go. After all of that, he's using paper. Okay, so this week's episode features global changemaker Melati Wijsen, founder of YOUTHTOPIA, whose work is inspiring a new generation of leaders to create tangible impact from Bali to the world. Now, a little bit about Melati. Environmental advocate, author, global speaker. Many of you remember at the age of just 12 years old, Melati co-founded with her sister Isabel Bye Bye Plastic Bags, a youth-led movement that changed environmental policy here in Indonesia. And today she continues to empower young changemakers through YOUTHTOPIA, a platform that redefines leadership, learning, and collaboration across generations. Now, Melati has shared global stages with world leaders, including and introducing President Barack Obama. I think a few of us know who he is. Love that man as well. At the Ziggo Dome in Amsterdam, moderating National Geographic's Sustainability Week in Bangkok, and serving on the Earthshot Prize Experts Advisory Panel. Her film Bigger Than Us premiered, thank you, at the Cannes Film Festival, and her debut book, this one, Change Starts Now, right? So remember, get a copy. If you're watching online, go and get a copy of this book, okay? You know, 100 Lessons from a Full-Time Changemaker, published by Harper Collins, is now available. Now, there's a bunch of takeaways from tonight, but I won't go into those. I'll skip straight to this. So it's my birthday, hence the reason for a birthday cake. Thank you very much indeed, Mary Swanson and the gang. Really appreciate it. 31 again, apparently. So Robert Ian Bonnick, that's me, co-founder of PT Career Life Group, Gateway to Indonesia, through RIB and Associates, Speak Up Monday, that's what you're watching now, talk show and tourism architect, founder of Speak Up Monday, Indonesia's #1 entrepreneurship and social impact in-person and live stream talk show, now approaching 500 episodes. This is episode 496. Coming up, voted #1 changemaker in Bali, top 10 motivational speaker in Southeast Asia, CEO Insights, and finally recognized by Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy of here in Indonesia, Bali Tourism Bodies, endorsed by Forbes Business Council, Founder Institute, and Startup Grind. That's a mouthful. One more round of applause. Thank you very much. Good Lord. And this episode is called Change Starts Now. Right, please remember to buy a book, guys. So, let's get to you, my sister Melati. That's another kid you didn't know you had, Elvira. Big brother. So, look, you know, again, one of the things which I really appreciate about you is that you're forthright, you're determined. Now, you're born and bred here in Bali, and you know, you have this wonderful sense of urgency. You're a fantastic communicator, and you know, this is very moving for people like me. And we did a little kind of get to know you session before, and you know, 70% of people here said, you know, that you inspired them, right? So probably my question to you then is that what inspires you and how, a little bit more to that, I know you can handle it, how on days when you're not feeling so inspired do you find your way to that place?
I love that we're starting with this question as well, because what a special day and what a special place. I think to answer your question, it kind of, take a look around us. Where are we right now? And there's so much beauty on the island of Bali. I think that home, it's not really a person, but it's more of a place, and the feeling of home, a feeling of belonging, a larger sense of community as well. That is what feeds and drives my inspiration to do what I do every day. And in my book, the entire first chapter is dedicated to having grown up on the island, being carried by this natural world that we have around us, and developing from a very early standpoint the very first lesson of the 100, which is we are nature. And I think that understanding, that lesson, is what inspires me the most, and what also allows me to keep on going. And on days where I think, the traffic is so loud, and there's another development happening here or there, I try to go back to nature and connect with the reason of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And after over a decade on the front line, so many of you mentioned that you've been following and seeing the journey since age 12, or a couple of years ago when I was last on Speak Up Monday. And, more than half of my life dedicated to this work. And the reason why I do this work is because I believe deeply in my soul that another world is possible, and that we can work towards something that we're fundamentally proud of, but lives in partnership with nature.
One of the things which this IUCN conference, and I was talking to a few diplomats, a few ministers and so on, and this was a question which I posed to them, right, as I get the cable out from my size big feet. One of the things I've noticed right now, there were so many eminent scientists in Abu Dhabi, so many, right, thousands, yeah? But here's the thing, being like industry agnostic, I work across many industries. What I've noticed is that, pure facts alone do not make the difference, in my opinion, right? Now, I can be wrong. But if they did, then we wouldn't be where we are now, right? So what I kind of noticed then is that in some of these cases, when I get underneath the bonnet, it comes down to as simply as, well, I just don't like the guy. Or I just don't like this person, so I don't want to work with them. Regardless of the fact that this collaboration or this deal to be on the table will create so much impact, but they just can't get there because they just can't get past their ego, right?
Yeah.
How much is this a challenge, do you think, for you?
I think that I was incredibly privileged to have started when I started at 12 years old, mostly also because we started at a time where the people in the community on Bali were also just as much as us at 10 and 12 years old, fed up with the problem of plastic pollution. And we also started from a place of pure intention, without the money-driven intentions, without the ego, without the chase for a title or a promotion, but 10 and 12-year-olds and a bunch of other kids who said there's something wrong and we want to do something right. And I think so it comes down to this pure intention, but also moving from a world and a place that is driven on competition instead of collaboration. And this is really hard if we're not creating more spaces at a younger age to unlearn that. We're already in the school systems or in the workspaces encouraged to get ahead of each other instead of supporting each other. And I think that this is something that deeply Gen Z is trying to say, okay, how can we actually look at the world as a global community? None of us are free until all of us are free. Sustainability here on the island also means sustainability in the rest of the world. So I think it's really this global approach of real collaboration at scale, which we've tried to implement in the work that we've done with Bye Bye Plastic Bags and with YOUTHTOPIA, and move from a place of ego to an ecosystem. Yeah. You know, so really looking at how we replace celebrating one and instead amplifying and showcasing all the different celebrated ways to create change. And that's what we do largely at YOUTHTOPIA, which I'll share a little bit more later.
Yeah, I mean, that just inspiration is caught, not taught. A friend of mine told me that a long time ago. Ecosystem to ecosystem. That is beautiful. First time I've heard it, right? So ecosystem to ecosystem. So one of the other things, there's two ways that I got to this. One was more intuitive, but the other one was, it's in a book. I can't remember the name. Soul of America is the name of the book. John, the surname Meacham. John Meacham, that's his surname. So, and this is important, right? So if back in the day, whenever that day was, if there was someone who I met that maybe we didn't share the same opinion about something, we could get past it, right? And say, you know what, I don't agree with you on that, but let's talk about this, or let's go and have a coffee, let's talk about other stuff. But what it feels like more recently has been this toxic, if I don't agree with you, then I'm going to cancel you, you're out of my phone, you're out of my life, I don't want to see you, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Done. This really kind of polarizing. So one of the things which I kind of chanced upon, but he writes in his book, a 3-step process, which I think is, I'd love your feedback on it. Number one is curiosity. Right, so when you meet someone that perhaps you don't get along with, and this might be some of the change makers out there who've been banging on the same door for the last 10 years but no impact, the door is still closed, might want to try it this way. Curiosity is like, well, what is it about this person that makes them the way they are? Why do they hold the viewpoint? And just a few questions like I'm going to ask you soon. It's quite easy, one of these, two of these, to understand that their background and their childhood and was faced with this. So with number 2 is humility. It's like, well, if I had grown up in the same way that they had grown up, I would probably have the same views, maybe even deeper than what they hold now. And then the third one is that, well, this gives way to empathy. And like for me, empathy is power and strength. It's not weakness, because empathy is getting past yourself to get into someone else's shoes. But and it doesn't mean I change my view to be like yours, but at least I can understand where your view is coming from.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe your feedback on that, and then how do you get past, these doors, maybe perhaps where people maybe have said, who does this young lady think she is coming in here telling us, well, we're adults, we know better. Like, how do you find a way to get through that door? Yeah.
I mean, you're bringing up one of my favorite topics to talk about, because I think this is at the core, essentially, why we've arrived in this moment of so many crises all at once. And it's not only the disconnection we have to nature and to the natural world, but it's the growing disconnect that we have amongst each other. And I think this is also, going back to Bali, one of the fundamental lifestyles on the island, within the community of an island, to live in harmony with nature, to live in harmony with community, and to live in harmony with oneself. And that brings it back to a lifestyle and a way of life here on Bali called Trihita Karana. So, and this is not a new technology. This doesn't require millions of investments. This is simply a practice that existed generations ago, and somehow now we have lost. Now we've created a culture of cancel culture, this fear of not agreeing with one another. So the bravery or the excitement to put an idea out there, to be different, really is gone from already a young age. And I'll tell you this in practice, what it looks like working with young people all around the world. I started at 12, I'm now 24, and I spend most of my time in classrooms working with other people through my organization, YOUTHTOPIA. And when I'm with a group of 8-year-olds to 10-year-olds, we can ask a question. If you had a magic wand, what change would you like to create? And I can tell you, the classroom erupts with energy, and all the kids immediately come up with everything. From things like no poverty and everybody has a roof under their heads, or that all the dogs on the streets are healthy and safe, to I want a fancy new car that's the fastest ever. The exercise is not to have the right word, the right answer. It's just the exercise of your creativity. Can you imagine what that world looks like? And are you brave enough to share that dream out loud? When I jump to middle school, already the room becomes a little bit tense. But if you give a little bit of examples, you showcase a little bit of what those answers could look like, suddenly the room starts to look like popcorn. And one by one, they start offering their answers. But by the time they reach high school, the room is silent. And there's a lot more fear to be different. There's a lot more fear of what others will think. And the dream suddenly gets lost. So how do we change this experience of learning to change the way that we lead and how we show up in this world? And that's a big principle of mine on how we can navigate a lot of the things that are happening as we grow up.
One is the university, which I love to talk into, but just on that topic, like, how do we navigate? Give us an example, because I think people here, either in person or watching, can pick something up.
I think, so I say the word exercise your imagination, and I kind of like to combine it with a very tangible example of, like we all hear very often, we have to exercise our mind and body. So have you drank enough water today? What are you eating? Making sure it's healthy. Did you go to the gym? Did you run your 5K to be physically healthy? But how do we do that for the mind? And I really believe it's the access to stories that you have. And what type of stories do you have access to? Who inspires you on your day-to-day? What type of questions are you asking? Because I think you mentioned it before, curiosity is such a superpower. But how do we grow our own curiosity? Are we asking questions that open doors, or are we questions that make us dig deeper and fill the fear that already exists all around us? So, one of the classes that we share is, what questions do you ask? And you kind of spend a full 5 minutes just writing down every single question from an empty blank piece of paper and see how much you can fill. And I think those little exercises are how you can navigate, because you get stronger in your curiosity. And then the next phase of that is to actually share it with others, right? No matter how crazy the question, no matter how big of an idea, share it, because that's where you start to build and find your team, your tribe, and your community.
Heartbreak. Don't know, just popped in. Where'd that one come from? Heartbreak.
Where are we going here?
Where are we going here? Again, I've seen you, speak at the UN, speak with President Obama, address, these very eminent audiences around the world, right? And out of some of those rooms, you've probably experienced heartache, right? Meaning, you've gone in and you've said that you've created, maybe you've gone back, successive years, and you've seen that nothing's changed, right? So there's a personal kind of heartbreak. It's like, wow, we've been trying so hard. I've been living this. I've been galvanizing people. I've been organizing people. I've been writing books. I've been doing podcasts. I've been doing all this stuff, but there's still no change. So I feel a little bit heartbroken. So, 'cause again, when I look at this audience and just hearing everyone speak before, I think it's something that stops a lot of people. Right? It's like, I'm having a really bad day at the office here. Tomorrow I'm not going to go back to the office, right? At all. So how, maybe if you want to give us an example, you're welcome. If not, it's okay. But how do you get over, if that's the right way to say it, this heartbreak of doing something and just seeing that it's not going anywhere?
Yeah. I write in my book that the first time I experienced heartbreak, I was about 15 years old, and I went for a trip to the Suwon landfill. And I stood there on this mountain of trash, hearing the crunch beneath my feet, the blazing sun, and the birds and the cows around, and the families around, living with this mountain of trash. And I explain and I write that that's the heartbreak that I first experienced. Then I found my next heartbreak in conference rooms, where I was, for example, at the United Nations General Assembly. And the night before, my sister and I had this insane amount of pressure that we felt that in 20 minutes, this was our chance to reach world leaders that potentially could push for the change that we wanted to see. So we were up all night rewriting and writing the script. The next morning we went on and we delivered our speech, and then applause. And it continued with nothing really happening. And that was the next heartbreak I had. And it continued for, multiple times in many different scenarios. And I think one of the first ways that I've learned to navigate this heartbreak is first sit in it, because it only confirms that we're human and that we care. And from the late Dr. Jane Goodall, one of the most fundamental things that her entire life's work was about is, first and foremost, care about the world that we live in. Because when we care about it, we can protect what we love, what we care about. And so I think sitting in it is the first real human experience. And then also trying to share it, not hold on to it, not dig deep onto feeling the personal responsibility, because this work of creating change requires each and every one of us. The ones in those rooms of the United Nations General Assemblies, but also all of us here in all the different roles that we play. And so while that lifts the burden, that's also an exciting opportunity to say, okay, how do we go back to the drawing board, re-strategize what maybe didn't deliver in a 20-minute presentation, but continues in the day-to-day. And I think I really try to remind myself that in every moment, when I'm on all these stages around the world, when I'm meeting these different world leaders, I remind myself of what anchors me in my hope and my inspiration, and that's nature and this community of young changemakers that I've built through YouthTopia, who don't wait until they're older, who don't wait for that moment at United Nations, but just do it every single day.
Love that. You know, by the way, Speak Up Monday is about three things: people inspire people, unity and diversity, entrepreneurship and social impact. But probably one of the most important things is that people that show up in person. So I really appreciate the 50 or so people here showing up in person. So the least which I can do is not talk so much. And you've already spoken on the microphone. So it was a bit of a trap. Sorry, not sorry, right? So in about 5 to 10 minutes or so, I want you to raise your hand. If you have a question, please have the courage to raise your hand, take the mic. You know what to do now, not down here. Because you can't hear you, right? You know, so nice and close. When that time comes, I'd love you, by all means, plug what you do. No problem. Right? Hi, my name is Rob. I'm from blah, blah, blah company. We're doing this, this, and this. But then go straight to your question. Okay? Got it? Yeah? Okay. So when that time comes, okay, not yet, but you'll be the first ones here, right? So we're talking about YouthTopia, young changemakers, right? So, but as I feel Elvira in the front here, being a parent, and I have two young girls who are doing, they're two, I'm going to get all teary if I talk any more about my girls. Young changemakers, how important and what do you advise their parents, right? Because again, you mentioned before those different levels at school. This one over here, open. This level here, still open, but over here, closed. Need a lot of support to open, right? So you can see what's going on here. So what would you suggest to young changemakers here? Moreover, to the parents, if they're watching this, what is the most supportive mindset that they can have to nurture this young changemaker that's before them?
I think the first mindset shift globally that has to happen is this intergenerational collaboration. And we far too often, it's either, there's so many ways I want to go in answering this because there's so much to share. But there's 3 levels of where change is happening. And this is a question that maybe I can also ask to all of you. It's something I ask in classrooms as well. Where do you think change is happening, or who is leading the change? And it's from these 3 levels. The first one is government. The second one is private sector, so businesses. And the final level is society, so people, you and me. And oftentimes when I ask this question and I ask who thinks it's government, very few hands go up. Private sector, a little more hands go up. But then I ask people, the level of people in society, all hands go up. But the thing with this narrative is that actually all 3 levels have to be leading the change we want to see at the same time and in collaboration. So that's where the intergenerational aspects come in, because young people in our generation have so much strengths in creativity, in motivation, in focus, in organizing. Look at the grassroots movements of Fridays for Futures and the protests on the streets, or even what was led recently all across the country in many different parts of the world. But one of the more simple things maybe to implement and spark this intergenerational collaboration starts in the home and starts at the dinner table. And this is something that my parents did on the table at home when it was time to eat. After a very long day, instead of just asking, "How are you? How was your day?" they would ask, "What did you fail at today?" And let me tell you why. It's a beautiful way to, in a not daunting way, start the conversation of how failing at something builds character, builds resilience, but more importantly, gives you the skill set and the mindset that is needed to go back out there. And I think that's one of the best gifts that our parents gave us at a very young age, to open up that platform, to say, okay, play what is out there in the world that you care about, and what did you want to do but weren't able to achieve, and what did you learn from that experience. So I think that's an easy way for the parents in the room to create a safe environment for young people to get involved and establish that intergenerational collaboration.
Last question for me for now, twofold. So number one is, what inspired you to write the book? And we'll get to that. And then number two, or number one, whichever way you want to do it, you know, if there were three things, young change makers, right? I know there's 100 here, but if you could distill it to the most important three, what would those three things be to nurture, create, support, find, discover that change maker in you?
Okay. Where to start? So I think one of the things that I'll start with responding to your question of why I was inspired to write the book. I had just celebrated 10 years of being involved and being at the front lines of creating change with Bye Bye Plastic Bags. I had so many lessons that I learned just by doing, without a business plan at the start, without a strategy, but just purely by picking up, organizing, and learning on the way. By no means did we at the beginning think that we had all the answers. It was really this experiment of believing in a better world. And through that experience, we wanted to share also all the lessons, because we built a different idea that, you know, anyone, anywhere, no matter their age, could do the same. And with YOUTHTOPIA, we have this learning platform with over 8,000 learners from all around the world who access these lessons on a masterclass format, workshop format. But still, I had all these personal stories and experiences from behind the scenes of everything growing up in this movement. My first burnout at 16, throughout going on stages with a heartbreak, or meeting a governor for the first time and thinking, oh my goodness, what should I say and how should I say it to get that change happening? So all of these experiences formed in lessons that I started writing down. And honestly, I started writing the first lesson and suddenly I ended up with a list of 100. And since publishing, I have 100 more lessons. But it was really this want and this need to share that story on a very human basis, on my personal experience with everyone else. And the three lessons that I will cherry pick off the top of my head, you're catching me in a mood where these three are formulating in my mind. The first one you already heard, and that's we are nature. And I think that this one's more important than ever because of what is happening in our world. We cannot look anymore at the climate crisis and think it's separated to our human rights. And I think that this is a fundamental change in narrative, not only for us personally on an individual level, but if we really understand that the climate crisis is affecting our human rights, the way that we make policy will change, because suddenly the floods affect our ability to access quality education. It affects our way to have a quality life. And I think then our politicians will have no more excuses than to finally take action, because it's not an environmental crisis alone. It affects so many different parts. So we are nature. Fundamental, simple, you would think, lesson to learn. The second one that I will bring up is the love that I have for stories. And this one more in line with, if we want to change the story, we have to change the storyteller. And this means each and every one of us have this ability to share what we believe in, to share this vision, this story that we can believe in. But creating more spaces for these storytellers is important. It doesn't only start in beautiful community places like this, but it should be also in government rooms, and it should also be in classrooms, because change starts in all of these places. And the last one is that change making involves all of us. Oftentimes I hear, especially from students, that, you know, I'm not like Greta Thunberg, or I'm not like Melati, but that's okay. And that's even better, because this movement of change requires all of us, whether we're interested in writing, research, properties, events. That's what this movement needs. All of our different strengths coming together. And the final lesson in the sort of bite size is that change making is a lifestyle.
Well done, sister.
I was like scanning my brain for all the 100, and I was like, am I picking the top three?
Now, so Brother Guzman, we pass the mic to Brother Tree to begin with. And remember, with questions, by the way, you'll be on camera. There's another camera that swivels somewhere here. So if you don't want to be on camera, then just wait and ask your question privately afterwards. Second thing is just a reminder, it is super fine for you to plug your company, yourself, quickly, but then please move to the question. That way we can fit more questions in, and therefore more value is exchanged. Over to you, brother.
Okay, thank you. Melati, I have just very direct question. I found just this week, I found the governor of the West Java in Bandung, Deddy Mulyadi. He just doing the real action, how to convert from the rabbis become electricity. and then he built now just this month he start to build the incineration machine, and then he did real action. Okay, that's about the real action in West Java. Yeah. But now, do you think it's possible to motivating our governor in Bali to do the same action as Deddy Mulyadi as West Java governor? Do you think is it possible to you? Because I believe now you have a power of that. You public figure of that now in this condition. So if you could do motivating our governor, I'm as the Balinese, I will be big thank you to you. Is it possible? Thank you.
Bapak, terima kasih, and thank you for your question. I think this is a task and a job for each and every one of us, and I think that I'm really inspired by the youth of Bali. So many of us Bali kids as well growing up here have stood up and stepped up for the recent floods, and we've seen that in efforts from Eva Kandra, Aisha, Cleo, who don't have organizations, who don't have even the budget or financing, but have managed to get donations, get aid to people, and do the real action that you're talking about. But one of the biggest things that I still see needs to happen is our governments understanding that it is a systems change that needs to happen. We're finally seeing a lot of the governments jumping on saying, yes, it's the crisis iklim, but it is not only the climate crisis, it is that bigger systems change of infrastructure change that needs to take place. So on a job by myself, I can try and I can push the movement, push the narrative to have this system change, but it's going to take a lot of us to put a lot of pressure on, because since age 12 to today, I know that there's still a lot of work to be done. And so I think this is a call and an invitation for us all to work together to get this change happening, because it's time.
Thank you, my brother. Next question, just raise the hands over there. I know, yeah, behind you. Yeah, just behind you. Yeah. And again, that intergenerational collaboration, I think, comes in very handy at that point.
Hi, I just wonder, what is actually the strategy to implement the new paradigm in the local schools? That's my question.
Yeah, beautiful. So one of the ways that we have done implementing this educational shift with Bye Bye Plastic Bags is we've created an educational booklet with 100 pages, really diving deeper into the problem of plastic, the impacts on our ocean, the impacts on our soil. Not this book, it was a different book, but it was actually one of the first books that we did with Bye Bye Plastic Bags, and we distributed over 12,000 of these booklets for free to the local students, and that was accompanied by a workshop that was a bit more around change making, and once they learn about the problem, how to do it with the solution. There are a lot of incredible programs that exist in Indonesia already, like the Curriculum Merdeka, which is a national program where teachers actually have to implement these entrepreneurial skill sets, change-making skill sets. But one of the problems that we've already see happening is the teachers are ready to teach these classes, but don't necessarily feel the confidence to be able to deliver these very new concepts within a country like Indonesia. And so one of the ways that we're hoping to explore in 2026, also with the book being released, also with YOUTHTOPIA now really finding having its training legs on after 5 years of a lot of collaborations, is to really implement how do we plug into the national curriculums here in Indonesia and around the world. Because that's really, after working on bioplastic bags, focusing on plastic pollution, my big passion now is about how do we change national curriculum. Because it shouldn't be, until after graduation that kids are getting inspired to be part of this. It needs to happen a lot sooner, because simply we're running out of time. So how do we empower a generation of change makers? It begins in the classroom. So that's one of the things that we'll be picking up early 2026 and hopefully implementing to work with teachers who are within the Curriculum Merdeka or with other associations of teachers around the country.
Beautiful question, both of them. Thank you. So just over here, Anne-Marie, and then we'll go back to you. Yeah.
Melati, what is happening to solar panels in Indonesia? You don't see solar panels on the roof almost anywhere. And in countries all over Southeast Asia, Australia in particular, almost all the homes are run on solar energy. In a country that uses massive amounts of electricity, air conditioning, why don't we have solar panels?
That's a great question, and I wish I could give a stronger, more informed answer. One of the organizations here on Bali, Smart Energy, has collaborated with YOUTHTOPIA to put solar panels as a showcase on our headquarters in Sese. And I invite you to take a look at their technology and the work that they're doing. But I do know that through my conversations with activist Elok Mutia, for example, who's a young Indonesian girl who spreads awareness around solar energy in Indonesia specifically, has shared with me her frustrations on simply not having the systemic policies implemented or created to be able to scale such technology that supports entrepreneurs. So a lot of the roadblocks are in terms of scaling, but also access to funding and getting this to across, businesses or communities here in Indonesia. So that's as much as I can share with you about the solar panels.
We're just over here. Natalie, you had a question, right? And in a minute, this side of the room, we're coming to you. We're going to do this one first. Thank you.
Thank you for the inspiration. Super inspiring to just listen. So I want to expand on this lady's question. So you're speaking about the national curriculum when it comes to education, and also previously you were mentioning the difference you can see from a lower age, and then you come up in high school and the dreams kind of just seems to die. It just breaks my heart to hear, and I think it's pretty fair to say that we see the same scenario in the Western world as well. So in the curriculum, how much attention do you give to psychology, mental health, emotional awareness, self-empowerment tools? Because you were also mentioning that the teachers doesn't necessarily have the confidence to actually empower the students. So this is my industry. I'm madly passionate about mental health, emotional awareness, self-empowerment, and all those things. So also how I could support, what you're already doing. Yeah,
definitely. Great question, and thank you as well. We talk a lot about sustainability, and then we oftentimes also forget that in order to have a sustainable world, it also has a reflection directly into the inner world, right? And I feel like it is slowly picking up this term of planetary health, and it makes sense, right? If the nervous system of our world is overheated and it's polluted, and at the same time we're living with a generation that is so connected and yet the least connected. Mental health is on the rise, eco-anxiety. We're from a generation that almost 70% of us experience this overwhelm. So what is going on? And it's this ability or this necessity to connect both so that we don't spiral thinking that this is abnormal, but actually it's actually so normal of seeing this reflection in our outer world that impacts our mental health as well. So within the curriculums and the programs that we create, we spend a lot of time looking at not only things like the sustainable development goals, but also on the inner development goals. We have guided meditations. We do a lot of breath work, and we do a lot of these mindful exercises that just bring the student back to themselves before they can also start dreaming, right? Because it's a lot of unlearning that is happening before we're able to start dreaming, because of the way that the world is structured, because of the way that the education has been created that feeds competition again instead of collaboration. Are you getting straight A's, or who is top of the class when it should be, how do we as a class work together to achieve a goal? And I think these are beautiful system change examples that need to start happening at a younger age, so we become more confident, and not confident so I win versus you, but confident that I know my role within the ecosystem.
Lovely question.
I could keep on going, but I will pass the mic and I will ask more questions later. Thank you.
So just in front, over here, Nat. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, did you want to go?
Bob will go after.
Hi. So in all of our respective areas, both here today and just globally, when we're considering human-centered design, do you have any thoughts or reflections on how we can go from designing for people to designing with people?
Yeah, I love that you say human-centered design, because I'm so used to hearing nature-based solutions, right? And I think that's also really interesting, because I think nature should become our biggest teacher again. And I opened earlier in the speech by saying, Trihita Karana, this way of life of living in harmony with nature, with community, and with the spirit within. And I think that in order to not work for people, but with people, it's also building a space where we can actually listen to one another. You were mentioning it as well, in this culture of being lost, of not listening, of just sharing. But oftentimes when it comes down to real community collaboration, the first activity that we do working with new communities, working with new classrooms, is sitting and spending a lot of time just listening. And I think that already builds a strong foundation for you to work with instead of work for. And it happens a lot in Bali with the best of intentions. Really the most amazing people from all corners of the world coming to Bali thinking we are going to solve the problem without having done the extra research or homework of what all already exists. And Bali is one of those lucky places that has so many good intentioned people, but it also has a foundation that is so strong that we just need to remember. Why do we come to Bali? Why are we attracted? Why are we grateful for this land? It's because there's magic here that already exists. So learning how to listen, learning how to learn again almost, just so that we can again find our own place within the larger ecosystems.
Beautiful questions, people, and obviously beautiful answers. If you pass the mic to Bhavna, just behind you. Now, just while we go, just a little insight that I learned somewhere, I don't remember where. 3 kinds of listening, right? Really 4. So one is listening to interrupt. Right? It's like, if you're not nodding now, you're a liar. Because we've all done it, right? Like, yeah, what I think is this, right? Number 1. And then number 2 is kind of listening, multitasking. Now, I don't want to get into trouble here. So, fellas, we know that women are a lot better at multitasking than men, right? Let's just admit it, put it aside. Now I can say what I'm about to say next. So, when we're multitasking, we're not really listening necessarily, right? So that feigning listening is number 2. And then number 3 is active listening. So active listening is where you're listening to what the person that you're listening to, one of these and 2 of these, are saying, but also to what they're not saying, right? So in other words, body language, right? Just by sitting in stillness with another person, it's amazing what you see. And when you think about it, as you said before, friendships are made in the listening, not in the talking. Think about it. If you just met someone and they just kept on, they didn't shut up, sorry, just be straight, would you be friends with them? If they actually listened intently to what you're saying and what you're not saying and really get you, is there a chance that you might be friends with them, that you feel comfortable and safe in their environment? Yeah. So the 4th listening is listening with your soul. And that is whatever, I think we get an inherent sense of what that might feel like. And so, for example, here, but she's my sister. Sorry, Mum. Right? So, as you might have guessed, we don't script any of this. Right? And I don't like scripting stuff. I actually really don't like it at all. Because for me, it's more, what's the word? It's inspiring when I see something that's happening live in the moment. Because then I'm learning stuff at the same time you are, right? And so I think the only question I ask you is there anything you want to say tonight? That was probably that was our pre-talk. Pre-talk finished. The rest of it is just me actively listening. And when I actively listen, another question always comes, always. And if I really get stuck, then I ask Spirit, why am I here? And shut up. Why am I here? And the answer always comes. So I just want to address that, because that's what I learned from Lord knows who or Lord knows when, but it really helped me, and it might help some people here about how to listen. And I'm sure you have a take on that as well, which you're happy to share.
I think that I love the flow of these questions and also the conversation that it brings up around listening, but also, it is that active listening, but there's also, at least in this example, there's also a deep trust. I would trust Robert anywhere. I could go on TV with you and 70 million people are on stream and we haven't talked about it, and I would still trust you to lead the conversation.
It's going to happen.
But also because, I think that is a fundamental aspect to real collaborations, whether you take it on a community level and you want to work with a community, whether you're a young person who wants your government to really create change, or whether you're looking at a company for a product that you're buying. Do you trust that organization? Do you trust that person? It's such a foundational aspect that seems to have gotten lost in this age of distraction, of a lot of little things happening everywhere, very big promises with no follow through. Look at the United Nations and the COP conferences is happening year after year. This year, it's COP30. This is the United Nations annual event of all the countries coming together, world leaders, and the moment of climate action happens. 30 years, and we're in the state of the world that we are in today. I don't have to say much, right? So trust is such a big part of the work that we do and the world that we live in, but how do we build it in a fast-paced world with so much happening and connection lost? And I think that that's also coming home to Bali. I'm barefoot on the ground because this is what reminds me of the land that I come from, the community that I come from, and that's why we're able to do this work. That's where community and trust is all about.
You know, before we go to Bala's question, for people watching, like, how do you generate or how do you nurture or how do you create trust?
Consistency, transparency, and learning that you cannot be everything to everyone. And at 24 years old and running an organization where I have an office and a team, and I was in many positions and many things that I didn't want to do because I just wanted to go to the beach, or I just wanted to do this instead of doing this. There were many of those moments, and in my leadership journey I've had to learn by doing. But one of the biggest ways is letting go, first and foremost, that it's human not to be able to do everything and be everyone to the world. So also recognizing what are your strengths, what are you good at, and where can you ask for help. That's also one of the most important things, because when others see that within you, they build the trust that you won't pretend or say something that you can't deliver. And that begins with also the support of asking for help.
Love it. Sister Bob, yeah.
So similar to Rob, I feel like my questions sort of evolve in the moment, and I feel like they evolved in the last 30 seconds from the last question that was asked. So I'm going to kind of take it in a different direction out of my own curiosity. So when I'm listening to you speak, I mean, first, you're so prolific and articulate, but I think we can all agree that there is such compassion, and you lead with compassion as like a catalyst for change. And I think a lot of people look to you and look up to you for change. So I'm curious, if you had the choice to be in a room with two individuals, one younger, one older, who are maybe disruptive in their own industry that's driving change, who would those two individuals be?
Ooh. Oh, this is a great question. I think I'm bringing it to, I really want to focus here on Indonesia, because I get excited of my thinking and planning for 2026 and this real campaigning and work that I want to do to change national curriculum. So for me, I think it would be Abigail Lemuria, an incredible change maker that you should know, a household name that I hope every household knows here in Indonesia, founder of What Is Up Indonesia, a great movement that brings young people into politics. And then I would also have the educational minister here of Indonesia, and bring those two together. And I would love to, I was going to say be a fly on the wall, but probably not at all, because that conversation and that movement of the collaboration between one of the most forward-thinking young individuals interested in politics, but in a way that is communicating hard concepts in simple ways. So What Is Up Indonesia is the platform, with an educational minister who can actually implement the way that we learn differently. Those would be the two people of different generations that I think should be in one room together.
Beautiful. Thank you. We're going to pass the mic over here. Naya, you had a question, and then we're going to deal with the questions over here now, right? So just think over there. Yeah, we're going to pass it over. Thank you very much indeed. And you know, the other thing as well, right, of having like a live talk show is that you don't have to think of all the questions. Especially when there's like Natalie and Bob and everyone else who's asked the question. It's like, I wouldn't have asked that. It's a great question. Yeah. So thank you, everyone who's asked the question. I appreciate you.
You're brilliant. You're brilliant, Rob. So Melati, you're so inspiring. And it's interesting because I've been here almost 3 weeks, just moved to Bali, and I love the beach. So I live in Uluwatu. And so one of the things that I noticed quickly is that visiting a few beaches, I noticed the trash. And I had a conversation just about 4 days ago with someone else, having lunch saying like, I wish there was a way or I knew how to tap into being a part of a beach cleanup. And so I didn't share fully what my company does, but I'm the founder of YOUTHTOPIA Global Wellness. So we curate wellness retreats around the world. And now that Bali is my home, I look forward to bringing more people here to experience the beauty of Bali. But we do always have a not only a coaching, but a social impact component. So I briefly mentioned that earlier. Would love to know how you collaborate with other organizations. I heard you mention collaborations. I've also done a lot around youth empowerment and even just entrepreneurial coaching. So I think that there's a lot of synergy as I look for ways that our organization can be a part of other initiatives like yours and how we can just contribute in a meaningful way. So I'd love to hear what that looks like right now. And I'm curious, how many beaches have you worked on? And like if you could just share with us just some of the great, I guess, how you quantify, how you're keeping up with all of this great work that you're doing.
Thank you. And I think maybe a big disclaimer to make sure is clear. The work that I have done in the past with Bye Bye Plastic Bags was a lot around the beach cleanup activations, mostly around education, being a youth-led organization. But today my work fully is in education because I've also stepped away from the day-to-day cleanups or activities around plastic because there are so many other great organizations that do it so much better on a full-time basis with the capacity and resources we never did have. And those organizations that you can look at are Sungai Watch, Maludong, Mudfish No Plastic, even Eco Bali as a partner, Plastic Exchange, Trash Hero. A lot of names there to rewatch back if you didn't write it down. But these organizations do it incredibly well. And then I think in terms of collaborations, how we work with organizations or even with young individuals for the educational aspects of YOUTHTOPIA, we have a network of about 400 young changemakers all around the world between the ages of 12 and 25 years old. And they run their own organization. So they could be focusing on things like plastic or on the love they have for science, having invented a flashlight that turns on with the warmth of your hand. Great. They're going to teach us all about why it's important to love science and innovation. Another young changemaker that we work with started a school in the refugee camps in Lebanon when he himself had to leave his home country of Syria. He teaches a YOUTHTOPIA masterclass on how to build community in times of crisis. So that's what collaboration can also look like. Yes, we are a learning platform. Yes, we offer all of our teachings for free, but who are our teachers? We're shifting that narrative also to amplify and support young changemakers with a short-lived experience, yes, but who have walked their talk. They share their how because they've done it before. And that's the blueprint, that's the beauty of YOUTHTOPIA, because it's based on an idea that if I can do it, you can do it too. And it's as simple as that.
You know, that knowledge, you know, just is interesting because what I said before, right, about, you know, I don't need to come up with all the questions because there's some brilliant minds here, right? Every week is great, but it's this collaborative learning. And, you know, I mean, AI came into my head, right? Just as you were saying, don't know why, but you know how it goes. But that ability to draw from your community, you know, that brain's trust of things that you may not be great at, but they are. Right, and that's to me one of the beautiful things about communities that you've created, and what communities can actually have in common. So probably then the question that came up then, let's go with it, is, you know, being a change maker. You know, I mean, okay, in my family tree, I don't mention this that much, but it's relevant now. Are people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, all Jamaican Maroons. They were very important in the American Civil Rights Movement. But the reason why I bring them up is because these guys were able to galvanize tens of thousands of people without a mobile phone, right? Without internet, without email, right? They did it. Yeah. And so now the tools that we have available to us at our fingertips are things like, yeah, the social media platforms and, you know, and so on, but also things like AI, right? So what, maybe the question is kind of, do you use AI? Is it something that you see as being part of the solution? What are the pros and cons of using AI that you've found? Like, what comes up when I bring up AI and change making? Yeah.
This is such a great question, and also one that I'm kind of learning how to share our experience with it. And all I can share is what we've noticed. I go into a school, fourth graders, and I say, yeah, I'm an author, I wrote my book, and I hold it like this, and the fourth grader will come up to me all sassy saying, yeah, but did you write it or did ChatGPT write it? And I really think, oh my goodness, I wasn't even thinking about that. But that's a thought that's their lived experience. That's what they knew growing up. That's their baseline shift. And that's something that I write about a lot in my book, which is, different things mean different things to, well, what am I saying? Different, aspects of life are so different for the different generations. It's a lot of different in that sentence, but anyways. And so that was an experience that shocked me, but also exercises where, for example, research. We are big believers that access to role models is one of the most important things in classrooms. If they don't see it, they can never become it. So one of the exercises is that they get a name, and they have to spend half an hour really researching, finding out all about the changemakers. Yeah, these are our workshops that you've been seeing on loop behind us. But it's really this idea of an exercise to get kids to really look at all different aspects of this changemaker. And that used to take like half an hour, and they would be begging for more time because, wait, we're not finished yet. Now, they're done in 5 minutes because ChatGPT gave them a summary of everything that they need to know about these changemakers. So one thing that I'm really worried about in the space of learning and when it comes to AI and tools like ChatGPT is that it takes out the entire process of finding the answer. It cuts out that entire experience of learning with your own mind and also asking questions, right? We started this whole thing about asking questions and the curiosity, but how does that grow if we cut out the entire process of research, of learning, of getting to understand A, B, C, D, not just A to Z? And I think that that's one of the things that we really have to keep an eye out. I'm not saying exclude it from classrooms. Oftentimes people think I'm saying don't include it. I think more important now than ever, include it in classrooms so we can teach young people how to use the tool effectively. Not that they think I go home and I do my homework afterwards, but how can we integrate it and understand how to use it instead of pushing it away as if it doesn't exist. That's really a belief that I have. Classrooms should reflect the outside world instead of continue as they have 100 years.
Thank you. Now, any other questions over there? Yeah, please, brother. Yeah.
Hey, Melati. I just wanted to ask one question. I'm sure you're aware of the waste-to-energy plants that they're bringing into Indonesia recently through the closing of the landfill by the end of the year. Just want to see, are you a part of that change within the government or any of the policymakers?
No, I'm not actively involved in that space at the moment anymore.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Devon. Any other questions over here? Yeah, just pull out the mic. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Very inspiring. However, I'm going to sound a little cynical at the moment, but I have a question at the end. Yes. So, if we look, a lot of these things come about through legislation and laws, basically, or I believe, of course, if you ask anybody on earth that would you want to have more plastic trash or less plastic trash, everybody gonna say less. So why is your struggle so hard? I mean, why are things not moving?
Sorry, could you put your microphone a little bit higher?
So why are things not moving faster? Yeah, I believe that sometimes also you need some kind of a push, or you need incentives, or even stronger measures in order for people to actually do something. And I believe that the buy bag was led to legislation into a law. Correct, right? Yes. So my question then, where is legislation, or are there any laws coming? Are you talking to lawmakers in Indonesia and abroad?
Yes, so that was the goal of getting Bali to be plastic bag free. And this was an effort led by a lot of different organizations, not just Bye Bye Plastic Bags. We were very strong as a youth-led organization to change mindsets, to get people to think, oh, what's going on here? A couple of kids raising their voices. But the end goal of our movement was really to get this legislation in place. Because again, we thought that was what's going to create change. And there is a law here on Bali that bans single-use plastic bags, straws, and styrofoam. But the issue, exactly as you're mentioning, is what is that incentive other than just a regulation to actually implement it to change daily life? And like many of you, I ordered GoFood just the other day. And this GoFood arrives in a lovely packaging, which is a plastic bag. And that experience in itself was a punch to the gut, because years of our organization, of organizations that have been working on this for so long, so many of us on the island, and yet it's not being translated to change everyday life and decisions. So what is missing? It's this incentive, yes, but beyond that, it's the ability to enforce. And that's a little bit where the levels of change that I mentioned before have to work hand in hand. Why do we still use plastic? It's a growing industry. It is not, globally, it is not flattening. It is not moving to a different direction. It's, if anything, increasing within the next few years. So why? Because it's cheap and because it's easy. Yeah, if you ask a small warung, stop using plastic bags, give a tote bag instead, where are they going to get the funds to get a tote bag? But how can we support and create a systems change within the governments that incentivizes these local warungs to be able to afford a more circular systems? And I think you were talking about, shifting it with the plastic bottles, but it has to happen slowly but surely with all single-use plastic items. This involves things like the hotel associations in Bali were having a really big launch just the other week on eco badges. So creating an incentive for private sector to align with more sustainable goals and outcomes, right? And there are many of these things, but not enough of them working hand in hand. And I experienced this being 14, 12, 16 years old in these government rooms thinking, hello, is no one seeing what everyone else is doing? The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And this is why change doesn't work, because also it feeds back to the one of who gets to be the right one, who gets to be the one that fixes the problem without actually collaborating across all industries. And I've done the work for the last 10 years being and actively trying to work on creating this shift and negotiations, but on a human experience, ordering the Go food and having it arrive in a plastic bag was so demotivating that I had to go for a very long beach walk afterwards and connect with nature. Like we said in the very beginning, the reason why I'm doing this work. But at one point, it's also this felt frustration everywhere where we start to get into a very dangerous tipping point. And that's a tipping point of losing hope. And when we get to that moment, it's almost game over. And that's where the active celebration of all the different change makers on the island, all the different organizations on the island that continue this work is where I feel most proud of. The work of Sungai Watch, the work of all these organizations, Eco Bali, the eco badges, the hotel associations that are working towards making sustainable tourism. So there is a lot happening, and I feel like we cannot let go of that, but it's all the levels happening all at once.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else over there? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Hi, first of all, you're so inspiring. You have this fire in you that I feel like everyone here in the room feels it. And I think it's such a beautiful thing. And I want to, in a way, try to ask a question. If the fire that you are sending to everyone right now, kind of that fuel of motivation, want to do something better for the world, what is something that you feel like each and one of us in this room right now can do today when we come home or after this event, whether that being knowledge or practical way to kind of bring it on, if that means to make the world a better place? What would that be? What message each and every one of us here can do after this to continue on?
Big question, beautiful question. And I think the way that I'll answer this is referencing my last chapter of the book, and it's titled An Invitation to the World. And I think there's a long list of things to do. So to find one is a little bit difficult because I believe everybody in the room also has a different skill set, a different strength, and that is good because that's what this movement of change needs. So to break it down for you and make it a little bit more tangible, after this talk, implement the 1 meter bubble concept. Now this is an invitation for you to imagine that everywhere you go, you only have 1 meter around you, in front of you, to the left, to the right, above you, below you. 1 meter bubble is where you're going everywhere. Whether you're in the classroom, whether you're at work, whether you're at home. And everything that enters that 1 meter bubble at all times is your responsibility to make sure that it feels safe, to make sure that it's clean, make sure that it's aligned with sustainable principles and goals. So what this translates to is start with, for example, when you're walking home and you think you're entering your bathroom and you're implementing the 1 meter bubble, how can you change just that one room to be more sustainable, and start with that? Or if you are a teacher and you're starting in your classroom and you're entering, how can you impact the 1 meter bubble in that classroom, and start with that? Because I sometimes struggle because people always ask me, what's the one thing that I can do? I struggle with this because imagine if we all did X, then what about all the other letters of the alphabet? And I have this memory of mine watching a speaker talk to a group of kids and really saying, okay, we all have to be the king of the jungle, be a lion, don't be a sheep, they said. And it was this tagline that they kept mentioning. And I say in my book that when I was sitting there in the audience, I was fearing so much because what this creates is a leadership narrative that there's only one way and one thing to do, when actually in reality the list is long, and a thriving, healthy jungle and ecosystem involves not only the lion, not only the sheep, in whichever jungle sheeps are, but it includes the butterflies, the rhinos, the elephants, and so many of us. And that's a direct reflection, again, what we can learn and look at from nature and implement it in our human life on how to live in harmony for a world and future we can be proud of.
Thank you. Carol, is that
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
See me?
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, the lights are bright, but I can see you.
Away from the limelight, away from work, who are the people or what are the communities that hold you to help you achieve your vision?
Well, again, I have 100 lessons in my book, but at the very end, I also have 100 names of changemakers that inspire me, because my list of support and of all the names is a very long one, and I'm very privileged to be able to have created that community. But I'm not here alone either. Kezia is here from my team, and she's been with me the whole week, running around to all these different community events and gatherings. We were a couple days ago with the Bali Island School. And before that, we were at the ecotourism. So, I'm always with the team of YOUTHTOPIA and the team that we've got around us. My mom is in the audience, who's a big support system, and off-screen, on-screen, always there to support. My sister is another one that I will mention, and we started the movement together at 10 and 12 years old, and she has also learned that her way of change making and her passions have also evolved along the way. So she's no longer involved with Bye Bye Plastic Bags or YOUTHTOPIA on an active base, but she discovered her passion for food. And so now she's working in kitchens all around the world, connecting people through food. And I think that also showed me how people can shift and change and still support and still be that ecosystem. So my mom, my sister, and my team.
Thank you very much. Okay. And it would just pass it over. You got a question here? Yeah, just over here in the front. Andrea, you have one? Just over here to Annabelle. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. You've kind of answered in lots of different ways, but I'm going to ask the question anyway and see what comes from it. Obviously, the problem is huge, multifaceted. You've mentioned the business, government, society, levels of change. I love the jungle ecosystem analogy. It's beautiful. And my question is, amongst all of that, as an individual, looking at your career path, maybe you personally, but also all of us in the room, there's so many different ways you could choose to go. You could go depth and go into research. You could go big into policy. You could, you want to change the system at a scale level, but you want to have a local impact on your day-to-day with your people. So I wondered what career advice you would have for people trying to navigate this, trying to find their places within the ecosystem. Yeah.
Great question. And I think this is something that I'm really passionate about because I hear it a lot. Oftentimes in this space, I'm guilty probably, and tonight you've heard me say, find your focus and we can't be everything to everyone. But in this journey of discovering and finding your place, it's also really important to allow yourself the chance to explore the different avenues that you are curious about, because that's what curiosity is. I did not think that I would be a public speaker and a storyteller because at 12 years old, I was terrified of it. Today, I lean into it as one of my strongest gifts and strengths. But if I wasn't going into all these different opportunities, I would have never arrived to where I am now. So my biggest advice for students, for all of you, for anyone asking, how do I find my place? It's first and foremost, just give it a go. Try. Put yourself out there. Volunteering is one of the easiest low-hanging fruits to explore this, because through an experience of volunteering, you'll learn very quickly what you like and what you don't like. And from there, you kind of create a shorter list one by one. You tick things off and you land to what you feel is right for you.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure, one more. Yeah.
How do you accept the things that you choose not to do? Because I think as a passionate person, and I'm sure a lot of people, you want to do it all. How do you accept that?
Yeah, that was also a really difficult one because I feel like, I definitely have a lot of ideas all the time, and sometimes I'm a bit quick to say something, and then also I'll realize that the team's kind of saying, hey Mel, let's come up with a realistic plan. And I think the way that I've learned to accept that is also by making sure that within my team I'm not the smartest one, and I have a good, strong, diverse skill set around me. And that's really important. We talk about diversity, but how do we have also a surrounding of diversity of thought, diversity of action, diversity of leadership? And within the team of YOUTHTOPIA, we're a very young team. I think I'm the oldest almost. And this is a way for me to also, not lose this dreaming idea, but also be grounded in so many different skill sets. One's really good at organizing and really good at spreadsheets and really good at administrative skills and keeping my calendar in check. Whereas I'm saying yes, yes, yes to like a million things. Keeping yourself grounded within a team that can be your sounding board helps you also accept what is possible, what can we dream, but how can we make that a reality?
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you very much. We pass it back to Guzman. So we're coming close to wrapping up. Close, but not there yet. She's like, what? So there's a few things which come up. Number one, for those of you watching at home, so tonight's show has been about our sister Melati. Change starts now. So where can they find this book? Or how do they buy the book?
So they can go on the website melatiwijsen.com or in Peri Plus stores here in Bali if you're around, or other stores that are super supportive like Indosol, you'll find it over there, or Shady Shack, Zin Cafe, a lot of the local neighborhood spots and spaces.
Beautiful. That was one. There's probably two little questions. Not little. So one is about the oceans, and then the other one is about the future. So let's go with the oceans one first, because I have never asked you this question actually, because I know it's such, being again at this IUCN conservation nature, it's so big. It's so broad, the ocean, it's just the ocean alone, 2/3 of the earth, is covered by ocean. It's so difficult, deep sea mining, blah, blah, blah. Like, how do you begin to create policy and then implement it on something that is so vast, right? How do you police it? Yeah, and who does it belong to, right? So these are just so that's one of the reasons why oceans are the most underfunded in this whole area, because it's just the expertise. How do you do it? And then obviously I mentioned to you about Bali Ocean Days, which everyone here, they've been on the show before. I'm one of the board of management for Sky Blue Sea Foundation, which is a prominent NGO foundation, in the space of conservation and ocean use in Indonesia. Once a year, so annually, it's called Bali Ocean Days, and it's kind of where government and private sector get to come together and discuss and create change and opportunities for that. The next one is 30th and the 31st of January, which is at the Intercontinental Bali, right? So Bali Ocean Days, Intercontinental Bali, and that's actually how I ended up with IUCN, because Mina, one of the key people at IUCN, saw me there and then said, look, you should come to Abu Dhabi and support us there. So probably the first question then is, are oceans part of the remit that you're in? If so, how does that kind of work at the moment?
Definitely. Where to begin with the ocean? Everything starts and ends at the ocean. Water is life, and we have so much to learn from our oceans. It is implemented in my work in different ways, in the stories that I share, in the spaces that I hold for National Geographic. I was just with them in Bangkok, and we did an expo on Follow the Water, bringing to life all the different stories of how we have to change our relationship to water in the first place and build a partnership with water. So a lot of storytelling events, but then also in the classrooms and the shape-shifting of way we look at it. The ocean, if we take a deep breath, every second breath comes from the ocean. So as complicated as we want to make it, with all the legislations and the questions of where and who does it own, who's in charge of the policies, it comes down to this fundamental human experience again, that if I care about my breath, the very first thing that happens when I arrive on this planet Earth, it's connected to the ocean. So whether we're speaking to kids on the island of Bali who see the ocean every day, or whether they're in the middle of mainland very, very far and the ocean is some sort of mythical being that they haven't seen only through stories, we're still connected to the ocean. And I think that's a really important narrative to hold within those big conference halls, because we forget, and that's what allows us to continue building the disconnect.
And look, the second question is around the future, and I'll give you a bit of time to answer this one, to think about it, because I'm going to do a quick of a sum up. So the future, two different aspects. So one is the future that you would like to see, and then two is a future that you would like people to contribute to, and how can they do that, right? That's that part. So I just want to get a sense of, if you've learned something tonight, just raise your hand. If you've learned something tonight, raise your hand. Okay. Good. No, it's really good to hear. Thank you so much. So I just want to thank, we have Guzman here from Tropical Nomad, who are the technical partner. This is the 320th episode that we filmed. Before that, this is episode 496. Before that, oh dear, we would, let's just say it wasn't consistent. I've got visions in my head of what we used to do before, and it wasn't good. So I think that, part of this whole journey, which I didn't ask you today, but, if you are starting, just start, right? When I look back at episode number, the first 10, 12, 20 episodes, they were shockers. At the time, we did the best we could with what we knew, which wasn't very much. And now we still don't know much more, but we're better. We have collaborations and partnerships, right? But I just remember that it was just a passion that became an obsession, and just kept on going and going and going. And on the way, I met people like you, like your mom, Elvira, who were able to inspire me in different directions and send me on different rabbit holes, right? And then discovery on those ways helped us to get better. And even with my brother Guzman over here, and he'll tell you, right, that when he started some years ago, we were learning as we went. And there are many times where things didn't work out to plan, but we just said, so long as we get the episode in the can, we'll work out the rest. But over this, we just got better and better and better. And sometimes you drop, but we've gotten better and better. So just start where you are and keep going, because no matter what level you start at, in a year's time, you're going to look back and say, that wasn't that good. So I'm cracking myself up. So just start, because no matter where you start, in a year's time, as I said before, you're going to look back and say, what were we doing, right? Number one. Number two, I want to thank you all for being part of my birthday today. Woohoo! Thank you. Yeah. Woo! Mamma mia. So my wife and kids are in Jakarta at the moment, because I was away in Abu Dhabi. I'm going to join them, I think, Wednesday or Thursday. And my wife, Marina, asked me, what are you going to do today? And I was like, but so much good has happened today. It's been an amazing day, and thank you so much for the cake. Where are you, Sister Mary from Rumah Daisy Cantik in Kaba. Rumah Daisy Cantik, said it twice. Go there, great place, great woman, great family. Thank you so much, and thank you all as well for coming tonight, because again, everyone is busy. We can have multiple opportunities to do other things, yet you chose to come here. So remember what we did in the beginning, which was that little fun game of kind of listening to everybody on the microphone, because don't leave without talking to the person that you felt something about. And remember, you can't be embarrassed about knowing their name, because you didn't know it in the first place. So that isn't a block for you to talk to them, right? And if you're watching, if you like an episode or the sound of it, come in person and meet some really great people. Not only our great, fantastic guests, but the people in the audience are amazing. So please, a round of applause for yourself in the audience. Thank you so much for being here. Mamma mia. So November 10 is our 500th episode. Stay tuned for what we're going to do. So that's November 10. I got it wrong for 3 weeks. I was saying November 3rd. How could you do that? How could you not check? I did, but obviously didn't check enough. So November 10, episode 500. You got to be wherever you got to be. Okay, just come. Now, final question or final point. A round of applause, please, for Melati Wijsen, who's our special guest for tonight. Remember, change starts now. Get yourself a copy. And look, so the last, question, we're going to have a photo after this, so everyone's going to stay for a photo, then we're going to hang out and chat. So it was a twofold question about the future. How do you see the future, and what part can people contribute to that future? Over to you, darling.
I was so ready for this question as well, but I wanted to also say that I am so honored to be back here on Speak Up Monday. It's one of my favorite communities and audiences, but also I love sharing a stage with you, but even more so because it is your birthday. And so you've been, picking up the book a couple of times, and I was like, Robert, don't. This is actually your birthday present with a signed little message for you. So happy birthday, and thank you for sharing this day. Of course. Thank you. And I guess to the answer the question, a nice little wrap up. I would like to read a poem that I wrote when I was 23. So like yesterday. No, I'm kidding. But it's a poem, and it's a little bit about how I envision answering this question. And it starts like this. What if it all works out? Even better than we had all hoped and planned. So much better than we could have ever even dreamed. What if the rainforests grow back and the rivers flow full, and the bees and the extinct rhinos, lizards and polar bears all came back, and Earth was home once again to all living species? What if it all works out? Even better than we had all hoped and planned. So much better than we could have ever even dreamed. Close your eyes and visualize the world you want. What does that world look like? I was in a workshop one day, and the lead facilitator was guiding us through an exercise where we had to imagine the world we want. You can come up with anything. The wildest dreams come true here. My world had lots of big trees, fresh, clean rivers, butterflies, and bees. I saw beautiful sunshine powering our buildings with light, gardens everywhere providing everyone with fresh food. Community-led action was at the center of every decision, and young people, of course, were actively involved. The point of this exercise was that if we can't imagine a better system, a better world, how are we supposed to create one? It's hard to work towards something you can't see, feel, or touch. Dreaming big is key, but making it tangible allows us to see results. And when we see results, we build the confidence and courage we need to keep on expanding our imagination for a better world. Gloria Steinem once said, "Without leaps of imagination or dreaming, we lose the excitement of possibilities. Dreaming, after all, is a form of planning." When my sister and I set out to make Bali plastic bag free, people said it was an impossible goal, but slowly we started. We built a team and momentum. After each cleanup, we felt success. After each government meeting, we felt a little closer to the goal. Every single signature we collected, donation we secured, event we spoke at, all of these tangible, small goals made us realize that change was at our fingertips. So I guess the final closing message is that change starts now, and it starts with us. Thank you.
See you next week. Thank you. Oh, beautiful.